Well, hey everyone, it's Nate here. Welcome to episode 294 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. And guess what, peoples? Today we are going to talk about the mighty Led Zeppelin with collector, vinyl insider, and author of the new book, Led Zeppelin Vinyl, The Essential Collection, Mr. Ross Halfin. Now, you may know the name Ross Halfin from reading the liner notes on many of your records or seeing it in music magazines. Ross is an extremely well-known photographer and has shot just about any band you could name, including AC/DC, Metallica, Van Halen, and of course Led Zeppelin. And his shots are some of the most iconic in rock history. So it's not all that surprising that he's also a record collector. And what's phenomenal is Ross's focus and depth of knowledge on Led Zeppelin vinyl. So much so, he's compiled a brand new book, Led Zeppelin Vinyl, The Essential Collection, available at realartpress.com, or go to any bookstore, online or otherwise. Now today, Ross and I talk about some very interesting Led Zeppelin records from around the world, including underground releases and bootlegs. We talk about Ross's hobby, how he fell into the rabbit hole of record collecting. We talk about the gems in his collection, some of the white whales he's still chasing, even some of his interaction with Jimmy Page when it comes to records and Led Zeppelin in general. We also talk about Ross's photography, some iconic photos and more. And of course, if you want to learn more about Ross and see or even own some of his photographs, check out rosshalfin.com. Now today I'd like to give a few shout outs for people and sources that I leaned on for today's episode. First off, Peter Stathopoulos, who owns Vicious Sloth in Melbourne, one of the best record shops in the Southern Hemisphere. I kid you not. They're also amongst the first to stock this Led Zeppelin vinyl book here in Australia. So if you're in Australia, head over to Vicious Sloth physically or even online. Get your copy there. I also want to give a shout out to Dylan at Noble Records, one of the best record shops in the Northern Hemisphere. Between he and Peter, they know so much about Led Zeppelin records, and I always love chatting with them. I learn more and more every time. Also, a huge thanks to Mark McFall of ZeppFan.com. And funnily enough, Mark and I actually went to high school together. He was a Zeppophile then, and he's gone on to actually work with the band directly. And his website, ZeppFan.com, is a glorious internet time sink for those of you who love records. I highly recommend checking it out. I also want to give a shout out to our latest Patreon.com/Vinyl Guide supporters. Ian Wobble, Ray, Rowena, Danny, Oyvind, and CJ, thank you so much for your support. And everyone else, please feel free to help support this show at patreon.com/Vinyl Guide. I always put early and extended interviews up there, extra stuff, and your support is always hugely appreciated. That's patreon.com/Vinyl Guide. So what are we waiting for? Let's do this already. Let's get into our conversation with photographer, author, and fellow vinyl maniac, Mr. Ross Halfin. This week on the Vinyl Guide, we're very pleased to have as our guest today, Mr. Ross Halfin, who you've probably seen his name on dozens of albums in your collection for photography reasons. However, one thing you may not know about Ross is he's also a bit of a record collector as well. Certainly as illustrated in this new book, Led Zeppelin Vinyl, The Essential Collection, out on Real Art Press August 24th, and it is an amazing collection of pictures and information all about Led Zeppelin vinyl. Ross, thank you for coming on the show today.
Hi. Hello.
Now, look, I've seen the book. It's absolutely beautiful. There are items that I've never seen in real life. I've heard they exist. Maybe I've seen fuzzy pictures here and there on the internet. And I got to admit, going through this book's been a bit of an emotional experience because it represents all these, like, it kind of represents my heaven, my nirvana. And I suppose putting this collection together represents your lifelong quest of Led Zeppelin collecting. Is that right?
Well, it was more, yeah. It is. I mean, it started off as maybe we do one, maybe we won't. And then it was more that, you know, when you go into bookshops, the big bookshops in London or in Los Angeles, if you're in, say, the Book Soup or Borders or one of those, you will see the Taschen book of the greatest album covers ever. And it's always The Dark Side of the Moon, Sgt. Pepper, Joy Division, The Smiths, Abraxas, Elvis. And it's the same stuff regurgitated over and over and over. And I suddenly thought, I was looking at my stuff, and they all stick in either Led Zeppelin 2 or Led Zeppelin 4, in these. And I realized that most of the stuff you look at in these albums, do you really need to see the cover of A Beautiful Day that you've seen 20 times or the Pink Floyd? No. And I suddenly thought there's a whole, audience out there. The whole thing with Led Zeppelin is that there was this air of mystery. So I'm hoping the book shows a bit more of the mystery that there is, that's more accessible in also the sense of kids discover Led Zeppelin. When you first listen to music, if you go back, people listen to Led Zeppelin 2 or Led Zeppelin 4, and there's so much more to it for a band that only ever officially released 9 records. And that was the idea. And I started photographing it and looking at it, thinking, wow, forgot about that. I mean, originally I wanted to do everything, but you can't really, because it's too, I don't know if you understand the term, anarakish, what we call in England. An anarak is someone who would stand at a train station in the 50s and 60s and write down the numbers of every train and tick his book, right? We call them anoraks, right? Because he could wear an anorak in the winter for the rain and still do it, right? So that, the idea is to give a broad selection of what's out there, but graphically an interesting selection.
As a collector, and I know you're a fan of rock music, what does it mean for you to collect those records?
Well, oddly, in the late, when I was married once a long time ago in the 80s, I got rid of most of my vinyl, apart from the odd thing, and got CDs. And I was oddly, and this is true, in the early 90s, I was with Def Leppard in Brisbane. And I went out for a wander, a walk around, and I went to, found a record shop. And I actually bought Led Zeppelin Bonzo's Birthday Party on TMOQ, the stamped cover, which I hadn't seen for years. I thought, why am I buying this? And, on coloured vinyl, and I bought it because I hadn't seen it for so long. It wasn't expensive. And that started me again. And then I started like, oh, well, I'll get that one. And now, I've got 50,000 albums. And really, that started the bug in buying. I have no CDs now whatsoever, a few. I have all vinyl. And I just slowly, it sort of morphed into this passion you had when I was 16. When you first played records and listened, you play the album and look at the cover. It was all this,
Yeah.
And really, that's where it came back from, and now it's obsessive, unfortunately, I can see behind you, you have. Yeah.
Yeah, you got the UPS guy showing up a couple times a day.
Yeah. No, I like to go out. No. I like to go to record fairs and look myself. I don't really like buying stuff online unless I know the people. I like to go and look. That's my criteria. I like to, I'm all about the cover first, the vinyl second, because you can always find good vinyl. You can't always find a good cover.
Now, that's interesting because as a person with an extremely artistic eye, bootlegs typically have, let's just say, lesser than average art.
Yeah, but I like the primitive style of their art. That's why they're in there. I mean, the first ever bootleg was Dylan's Great White Wonder, which was a plain cover of just GWW. Then it was Liver Than You Ever Be, which was the Stones in Oakland 69, which forced them to release Get Your Yah-Yahs Out from the end of the tour because it was selling so well. And the third one was this one called PB, Plays Pure Blues, which was a Zeppelin show from Vancouver, March 70, and it was pressed in Seattle. They only pressed 500, I'm told, and it was a plain brown cover. And it just said a capital letter, it said PB, capital P, small b, and Pure Blues. And I didn't realize that's actually in chemistry the atomic sign for lead. Actually very clever, if you realize that. And then the next Zeppelin bootleg, which was the one that everyone knows if you did collect, was Live on Blueberry Hill, the most popular one from September 17. And in the sense of, I think with the book, the primitiveness of the covers is much more advanced now, I like, over the overdone covers,
Right.
you know? That's what I find appealing in the bootleg sense. The official albums, there's one from India that's just brown with weird lettering. And there's one from my favorite album in the book and Jimmy Page, I got it. I swapped it with someone for a live CD, and Jimmy Page said, "What are you doing with that?" So I'm keeping it. Is one from Vietnam 70 of Led Zeppelin 1, but there's a 4 on it. And it looks like a jazz album, a Blue Note album. But it's on red vinyl on the Or Trompe or Champ label. And it was pressed by Atlantic, unbeknown to Led Zeppelin, for the US Army.
Oh.
For when they were fighting in Vietnam.
That's an official release then. I thought that
Well, technically, I mean, like if you look at the back of the book, it says there's the withdrawn Whole Lotta Love single, which is funny because the Zeppelin never did singles. Yet Atlantic around the world released, 2,000 or more singles.
Mm-hmm.
Even I remember Jimmy Page actually told me this. He said the first time we went to Australia, we saw the Acoustically EP, and we'd never okayed it. We had it with, and stuff like that. They never knew anything about it because it's not, like now where you can look something up. You couldn't find it then. You had to know someone to send you one.
Right. So Atlantic was making all these deals around the world, not necessarily
they knew nothing about them,
Mm-hmm.
In fact, funny enough, he told me he said that Atlantic threw a party for them in 73 in New Orleans. And it was all these blues artists were there, like Snoop Eaglin and all different people. And as soon as they saw Ahmet Ertegun, head of Atlantic, they're like, "Where's our money?" Because he never paid any of them, And he said they were quite white. Led Zeppelin were quite shocked because they thought it was all this nice relationship. And of course, it was all what they did. All the record labels will rip you off. It's a fact.
So what does Jimmy think about these sort of recordings? Peter Grant was notoriously anti-bootleg.
I think he, now he sort of finds them a bit looking back now, he finds it interesting to look at them. At the time, it was more about the quality. In the 80s, he had a whole load of tape stolen from his house, which has brought out a whole slew of CDs and later vinyl. So, it leaves you, it's sort of bittersweet, but he finds it interesting, to see what's out there. There's one from Montreux 70, just after the Albert Hall show, their famous Albert Hall show. And you can see they're much more confident because they were nervous at the Albert Hall. And he didn't even know that Claude Nobbs, who owned Montreux, was recording it. They were trying to find the master tapes, and the people looking after Claude Nobbs' vault deny having it. Right. But I think they know they've got it.
Out of your record collection, is there a white whale out there that you're dying for the phone to ring and someone to tell you that they found a copy for you?
No, it's all in there.
It's all in there.
It's all in there. There's stuff I don't have. There was one on K&S came up recently, which K&S was a Canadian label, and it's splatter vinyl, but the cover was the Humble Pie, like the Humble Pie Beardsley cover, the white and black one.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
With the slick insert, it was like that. And I can't remember what it was for, and I really wanted it, and I wanted it for the book, but I'd never seen one. But I think she sold it, whoever had it on eBay. I wrote to her, she had all these, I will say Americans who have money chasing it. And they, it must have gone for a couple of thousand, and I just thought it's time to put your hands up. The book's done.
Right.
The only thing I got at the last minute and put it in the book was I got a copy of Houses of the Holy with a hype sticker saying Jamaica, the new single, Did You Make Her?
Oh, okay.
Which is slang for did you have sex with her? Did you make her? Get it?
I never knew that. So actually, the one white whale you may have is that Led Zeppelin 2 first press.
The one white whale I have that no one else seems to have is the Vietnamese Led Zeppelin 1.
Okay.
But on the red vinyl. No one I know out of Zepp people have seen it. So I don't know what the hard stuff, the one that everyone tries to get is the mono Houses of the Holy, which people say there was only 50 pressed. I don't know how many there are really
That's
pressed.
the white label copy, the DJ
No,
copy?
it just says DJ mono oral. You'll see it in the book. And everyone's after that because it always comes up destroyed, because by then they'd gone into FM radio. So they'd stopped using mono albums, you know? And just as the book was done, I got a mono Led Zeppelin 2, which I've loaned to Jimmy to listen to. He wanted to listen to it because the bass and drums are way more prominent in it. You know, It sounds different. So, the mono stuff's hard to find. There's nothing. I mean, a couple of friends of mine, Nick Anderson, he's a lawyer. He did forensically all the official releases, and I did the pirate stuff with the live stuff with a friend of mine, Graham Hutchinson. And the list at the back is the most comprehensive list that's ever been done, which is what Jimmy thought was interesting, because he asked us to do it so that the shows were, if you just buy these records with no info, you can see what show it's from and what it is.
Yeah.
If you like that, I mean, that's what you could call an anorak. But
Yeah.
if you're into that, it's there. It's whatever you want. After you look at the pictures, if you really want to look at the serial numbers, when it was released, what the titles are, what show it is, it's there, official and unofficial. And of course, it's not a complete book because stuff always turns up, and there's some stuff I don't have. There's one called The Final Option, which is the big black box.
70 records, I think.
Yeah, exactly. What's the point of photographing a black box? I didn't even put it in. I hope someone who's got one. But I've had horribly arrogant people come to me going, "You can't do this book without my collection." But the point of the book is, it's not about someone's collection. It's meant to be a book that you can appeal to everyone if you're like 16 to 60 and like records. You want to look at them and listen to them, And it's not, I could have easily done all of Jimmy's solo. If I'd done all of his solo stuff and got that into that would have been a 2,000 page book. And the idea is it's a good representation of what is out there. And I wanted to keep it affordable so people can buy it in bookstores. I didn't want to do a limited edition book that costs $1,000. I wanted to do a book that costs $60 that you can buy for someone for their birthday or Christmas, or go in a record store and buy.
Now, the Led Zeppelin collecting community, are there is it pretty friendly? Like when something comes up? No.
Not at all. I mean, if you know people, I find some of the record dealers friendly. I find some of the actual hardcore collectors, there's about 10 or 20 of them, appalling, because they're so greedy and they're so, look what I've got and you haven't got. There's some guy recommended some guy who lives in Austria, and he was and all he wanted to do was show me what he had. And I said, well, can we photograph it for the book? And he was, I have so much, I haven't got time. And all he was really interested in was what I might have that he didn't have that I would sell him. But he had no intention of sharing his collection. And, the whole point of a record, of records and covers is to share. The whole point is for people to enjoy. Not like, look what I've got and you haven't. Ha ha ha. Never mind. And I know people that do that. It's disgusting, really.
With bootlegs, now my perspective, growing up, I tended to avoid bootlegs. I knew they were special. I knew they were interesting, but they always seemed to be, and maybe it was the bootlegs I was listening to, a second-rate experience. What are 2 or 3 bootlegs you think would change my mind, performance and audio quality wise?
Okay. I like Live on Blueberry Hill, even though it's very boomy, but the performance is amazing. And I like it because you get a real sense of the size of the venue and where you are, which is the LA Forum. It's a big venue. You get, and it's Led Zeppelin the Great. There's one called Live in Osaka 71, which is, an amazing vinyl if you can find it. And what it is, it's like Made in Japan by Deep Purple or Cheap Trick of the Budokan. It was Led Zeppelin went to Japan and they were going to record them for a live album, And Led Zeppelin said, "Oh, let's listen to the tapes," and we picked the stuff and basically kept the tapes. So I don't know where actually I do know where they are. And, but one of the nights they recorded both Budokans and both Osakas. And one of the nights from Osaka is the one that you can find on that record. And it really is Led Zeppelin. I mean, at their best. I mean, phenomenal. And you should try and find that. It's called Live in Osaka. It's in the book.
Right. Okay.
And the other one that's really great, it's exciting, is also from 70, is Montreux, Live in Montreux. I think it's called Thank You. I don't know. I haven't got the. I got a book. Do you want me to tell you? Do you have to find? Do you want me to have the book?
That's fine. That's fine. I could.
One from Montreux. So it's them at their best, but it's great. I know Jimmy's heard it and he thinks it's great. He's got it. He said it's great. You know, them on fire.
In the last couple of decades, we've seen collections coming out, How the West Was Won, the original DVD. It seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of that live stuff, some of the great moments have kind of been mined and put on those products. Is there a lot still available?
Well, I mean, there is. I just mentioned it. There's the Live in Japan 71. It's never come out. There is the Southampton 73. It's never come out. They have stuff. I mean, I think the original idea was Jimmy was always going to do a live album, call it Early Days and Latter Days, which became the greatest hits. And it never did. So, no, there is stuff. And I also think in hindsight, they probably would have let themselves be filmed more if they'd realised, you know. But at the time, it was just about the music. No one knew CDs existed. No one knew streaming would come. No one, you know, first time I saw a CD, I think I was in Japan or somewhere. I saw a Dio CD and I thought, what on earth is that? You know, I didn't know what it was. You know, why would I want that? And it's I like the way everything's become full circle in the sense of everybody buys vinyl now. No one wants CDs. But, you know, around the world, LA's great for buying vinyl. London's great for buying vinyl. Australia has a shop in Melbourne called Vicious Sloth that's excellent, you know, for that.
Oh, yeah.
And there's Japan is the very best for vinyl for condition. But if you really want to see something mind-boggling, go to Utrecht, which is twice a year in Holland, which is the size of 2 soccer pitches, and you can find anything. I mean, it's like, you know, I went there and in 40 minutes spent like $25,000. I mean, you could spend the cost of your house in there.
Yeah.
You know, buying stuff. You know, it's like, whoa, you can always find something.
Now, there's some records in your book that are enormously expensive, like the Japanese Immigrant Song single. I mean, that's a $10,000 record. Now, I know you're not.
I think that record's like so overrated in, like, you know, everyone's pumped the price up on it. You know, I think records are like obscenely overpriced. You know, it's like everyone's won the lottery on vinyl lately. You know, really. You know, but you know, you find the old stuff and it's, you know, compared to, like, you know, the artwork doesn't exist anymore. So the more you get, and Jimmy said this to me, he said, you go and look at these re-releases for Record Store Day and the quality of the cover's appalling. You know, what you're paying like $60 for that used to be $6. you know, think about it, you know, because they're on heavyweight. I mean, it shows you that, you know, it's, you know, now they make even more money on records than they used to. You know, look at the cost of like, oh, it's 180 gram vinyl. We sell it at $200. You know, it's like obscene, really. You know,
is all the original Led Zeppelin artwork still somewhere? Is that still safe?
Bits of it are. I know physical graffiti exists. Presence does with some bits of it. But I also know a lot of it with Hypnosis. They thought they were going to become these huge cinematic video directors, and they tossed it in a skip, you know, like threw it all away. The same thing happened to me when I worked for Chrysalis Records in the late 70s. I went to look at all, you know, I shot bands like Blondie and all their bands, you know, UFO, Generation X, you know, 10 years after, Ian Hunter, all the big bands, and I used to shoot all their my pictures and give them. They all got thrown away when they moved offices. No one had any value on them.
Wow.
So the same with artwork. It really, it don't know. I mean, Led Zeppelin one's artwork just so. What's the live? I think some of the artwork exists. Yes, it does.
Okay, because Led Zeppelin 1, I think that you could recreate that with,
Well, he sold a version of it originally, the artist, but it was a 10-inch, this big. And I remember he did offer it to the band, but I remember the band saying that they thought it was much bigger, the original. So this may have been done for a single, and that sold at like $360,000. I think, wow. But it was by the artist. So, fair play to him, really.
Now, you collect Led Zeppelin, not just vinyl, but all sorts of other materials, posters and those sort of things.
Yeah, I'm a big poster collector, yeah.
Is there a crown jewel to your collection?
Well, no, there isn't a crown jewel. I like Electric Magic, which was the show for Wembley 71, because I went to it. It was November the 20th and 21st, 71. And I've got an absolutely mint copy of that poster. And that, to me, is my jewel, just because I went to it. And it's a great, great poster. And there's also Ipswich Baths 71, which was for 900 people, and it says the legendary Led Zeppelin, because they were trying to sell it. It's funny, So things like that are I like the more boxing style primitive posters.
So I'm just doing the math here. You were 14 when you saw Led Zeppelin?
Yeah, correct.
Wow. Okay. So you've been that's been your band since day one.
Yeah, them and the Who, Zeppelin, the Who. I was lucky, and in 71, I saw Humble Pie and Grand Funk in Hyde Park. It was a free show, July the 3rd. I was 13 then, I wasn't quite 14. And they played the whole of the album Performance and Grand Funk live. And I saw the Who at the Oval, which was the Who, September the 18th, which was the Who doing Who's Next, and the Faces doing Nods as Good as a Wink. And they were and Rod Stewart was number one on both sides of the Atlantic with Maggie May. And that was like watching Oasis, because they were all they were amazing. And then the Who came on and played Who's Next. And on the same day, I saw Mott the Hoople, who I thought were great, doing Brain Capers. And Quintessence were on. They were god awful, like hippie bands. There was Atomic Rooster. They were terrible. As Ian Hunter once said to me, he said to me, when we saw them, I thought, why? There was America, who were huge in England at the time because they had a hit with A Horse with No Name, and they were just boring. And the Grease band without Joe Cocker, they were terrible as well, And I saw loads, but the first band I saw in 71, Lou Reed was meant to play, and he cancelled. He didn't come till 72. And it was the Edgar Broughton band headlining at Wimbledon Town Hall. I thought were amazing. And this new band called Genesis. And I thought they were terrible. I was thinking, this will never catch on. And it was Peter Gabriel dressed up as Britannia, and they're all sitting there plodding on. And I'm thinking, what a load of old rubbish. And what can I say? How wrong I saw Genesis, they were crap. I was thinking, this is terrible, So, I mean, 71 was a good year to see bands. Loads and loads of bands. It was like, Jethro Tull I saw, and stuff like doing Aqualung and stuff like that. It was great.
So you didn't start shooting pictures for
I started in 75. I shot the Who at Hammersmith, was the first time properly, as a fan. And then I really started when AC/DC came over in 76, and there was a heat wave in England and a dustman strike. So they had trash all over London. It was disgusting, but it was like, 45 degrees. It was boiling, like Australia summer hot. And AC/DC would play on a Monday and Wednesday at the Marquee Club, where were the quiet nights. I used to shoot them. I've lost the negs. I loaned them to someone, but I shot them quite a lot there. They were just some new band. You know, you do what you wanted. And then I really shot the whole punk thing, you know, came same year. I shot the Pistols, the Clash, Susie Sue before she was Susie in the Banshees, 9/9, all the whole gauntlet of it, you know. And everyone says you should do a punk book. You know, I've really got no interest in it, and I also don't think it would sell, because the people that like, you know, the punk scene are like an elitist bunch who would never buy a book. So they'll want you to give them the book.
Right.
So, you know, the hipster scene. And also, it's like, how many times can you show a picture of someone playing in a club shot with a flash? You know, it's boring. There's no, you know, it doesn't appeal to me at all. And also, I think by doing that, it completely dates you. I like to think I'm a current photographer still working, you know.
So you mentioned the AC/DC negatives are missing. Is that kind of a rarity in your collection? Do you still have the majority of what you shot?
I have most things, but a lot of my late 70s stuff is gone. I mean, I loaned some kid. Shows you how stupid I am. Led Zeppelin at Nedworth, I loaned someone at my school the next to make some prints. I never got them back.
Okay.
And they're long gone, you know, things like that, the Tubes, Roxy Music, quite a few things. You know,
so you did shoot Led Zeppelin in their original run then?
Oh yeah. I shot them 79 when they played. Yeah. And the biggest mess up, well, the biggest disaster I had on the old school flashes, there used to be an X and you had to line it up to your flash. So I was shooting it with a flash. They invited us in the dressing room. So I've got some color, but I shot a load of black and white, and and the flash wasn't slightly on X, and I only got them from the waist down, not the waist up. That's true. But then I shot some available light, which were underexposed, and I got, you know, a roll of film. And I think about 20 years ago, I threw them away. I looked at them and thought, these are awful. I can't, you know, what do I want this for? And of course, now in the digital age, I could make them perfect. Which, you know, what can I say? It's my doing. I was embarrassed by them, you know.
So I believe you also shot the last picture of Bon Scott alive.
I did. That was with Pete. Well, I'd gone out for the evening with Phil and Pete from UFO, and I honestly can't remember. I think it might be at the Music Machine, which is the camp, which was the Coco now. I can't remember where we took it. And we ran into him, and Pete Way was very friendly with him. He goes, "Oh, Pete," and he said, "Do a picture of me and Bon." And Bon didn't want. He goes, "Oh," and I took like 4 frames, you know, because we weren't really. I don't know why we'd gone. I just had a camera with a flash on me, and in the morning he was dead. So that, and then of course the management of AC/DC accused UFO of giving him drugs, you know, or whatever, which was completely untrue. You know, not true at all. We just ran into him. You know, I mean, that picture was taken at like 8 o'clock at night, you know, and the next morning he was gone. You know, he went off somewhere and we went off somewhere. But I honestly, I was talking, well, Pete's dead now. I was trying to work out. I said to Pete, "Where do I take that picture?" No, I don't remember. I think it's the Music Machine. I can't remember. But Bon, we ran into him. You know,
it was just a surprise, like, "Oh, here's Bon. Let's just take a quick picture."
Yeah. No, I guess, oh, it's Bonham, but they're both dead now. You know, Pete Way's been dead this August a year, so they've both gone, really. So it's special to me in a sense.
So look, I've got a Led Zeppelin record I want to show you, and tell me if you've ever seen this one before.
We'll be back after these messages.
Psst, hey, I gotta let you know about the Groove Washer record cleaner. The Groove Washer is the best record cleaner money can buy. I use it daily, and it not only cleans my records so they look and sound their very best, but the Groove Washer is also safe for long-term vinyl storage. I would never trust my vinyl with a no-name cleaner. Only the Groove Washer for me. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record shop and accept no substitutes. And if they don't stock the Groove Washer, just simply go to groovewasher.com and get 10% off with discount code VinylGuide10. That's groovewasher.com, discount code VinylGuide10. really quick, write this down. AudiofileUSA.com. AudiofileUSA.com is a family-owned and operated record shop that only sells excellent and near-mint vinyl records. They somehow find the cleanest record collections on the planet, many in original shrink wrap, some still sealed, and AudiofileUSA.com makes these decades-old pressings available to you. AudiofileUSA.com has over 42,000 titles in stock, and you can dig through their website searching by artist, genre, or even label and find the deals. Bookmark it in your web browser now. AudiofileUSA.com, home of the Holy Grails.
Now we return to the program already in progress.
No limits.
So look, I've got a Led Zeppelin record I want to show you, and tell me if you've ever seen this one before. This.
No. Where is that from? No, I have not. Where is that? Oh, now you've got me excited.
This is from South Africa.
Whoa! I've never seen that with that. Right. Let me see the back, please.
Oh, okay. It's not a gatefold.
Is it laminated?
No, it's not.
No. Wow, I've never seen it with that writing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
I've got a Taiwanese one that had cool writing, but I've never. What's the label? Is it red?
No, it's funny. It's got the Warner Brothers label.
Wow, I have never ever. Wow, I've never seen that. Wow, it's amazing.
Now it's got the correct U.S. plates in the runout groove from the Preswell plant, but the label's manufactured by the Teal Record Company, which is South Africa.
Well, one of the things I found out about, because it was a Jimmy Page acetate that turned up with Teal, I found out is that because Mickey Most with Rack Records was South African, was they would only press an acetate of your record, and they would play. Apparently, I'm told this, they would play it on the radio, and because it was expensive to make records, and if it was popular, then they would press it on regular vinyl. And that's why someone I know, Nick Anderson, who helped me do the list in the book, actually has a lot of 10-inch South African pressing acetates of all different artists.
Oh,
and
okay.
he's the one who told me this. He said apparently they would, if the record was requested and became popular, then they would press the vinyl. This was in the late 60s. Before that, they would just make an acetate because it was easy and play it on the radio to see if anyone liked it.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. Well, this isn't an acetate. This is an actual.
Oh no, it looks like a record. Right. I have never seen that cover. It's amazing.
Do you want it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have it. Yeah.
I'll send it your way. I think it should be, with someone.
I'll put it in the book if I'll update if I update the book, which we were talking about, because we found so much since then. Since I finished it, when I update the book, I'll add it. I'll credit you.
That's fine. I'll get your information afterward and I'll send it over. Yeah,
that'd be great. Thank you.
Do you spend much time looking at different Led Zeppelin records online? Like I find myself doing hours at zeppfan.com.
No, because I let Nick Anderson do it because he's a lawyer and he's so anal, if you understand that term, about looking at serious. Look, I look at whether it's A1, B1 first pressing. I'm not interested in the matrix number. He will look at the matrix number. But the joke of it, when I started buying records again, I thought, I'm not doing this. I'm just going to buy a record I like to play. What do? I look at the label. Is it an A1, B1? Is it a first pressing? Is it this if I'm going to buy it? And I have this thing, which a friend of mine, Pete Staphopoulos, who actually lives in Melbourne and owns Fisher Sloth, he said to me, look, if you collect records, mint should be brand new, not VG plus. An excellent plus should be played. And he said, stick to those codes, because a lot of people that sell stuff on the internet, their version of it is not out my version or his version of it. I've always stuck with what he said when looking for records. I won't buy a cover with writing on. One of the reasons, the hard thing to buy singles and European covers And this makes sense when someone told me, is that the reason people wrote their names on in biro is most people took records to parties. And when they'd make a stack of records to play, they got them back at the end. They knew they were theirs. And that's why most French, European records have people's names on or on the label, you know.
Do you have any Led Zeppelin material that is unique and a one-off compared, like even Jimmy doesn't have?
Well, I have that Vietnamese album he doesn't have. I have a mono Led Zeppelin 2, which he doesn't have, which I loaned him to listen to. I've got an Atlantic, someone gave me for my 50th, actually. It's a plastic desk ornament you have on your desk. And it's a 7-inch single, but it's got the Icarus, you know, the Led Zeppelin Icarus with the wings. And it's got Led Zeppelin, Bad Company, Maggie Bell and Dave Edmunds, you know, the swan song artists. And it's just an ornament, and I've only ever seen 2.
Okay.
I mean, you know, I've got that. I haven't got the object, you know, that they all collect, the black object.
I'm looking for one.
Yeah, they used to be. But I've got this desk thing that I really like. You know, I've got that.
But no, like soundboard recordings, nothing that you've been able to find.
I mean, a lot of the stuff that's turning up now, there's a lot in Japan of 75 and 77 tour stuff. And it's obviously coming from people who worked at Shoko, you know, the sound company.
Right.
You know, thinking it's okay to put it out. But there again, in a sense, I don't really like soundboard tapes, because what people don't get is that they were made for the monitors on stage so the band could hear themselves. So it's really just a drums, bass and vocal. There's no guitar. The guitar's really under the mix instead of above the mix. So if you're listening to Led Zeppelin, you really want to hear Jimmy. And it's great if you want to hear Bonham, but you can't really hear the guitar playing on soundboards. I don't really like them. A good audience tape.
So a good audience tape, like the ones from Mike the Mike. Those
or, you know, Listen to This Eddie's a great one. Yeah. You know that one, which was meant to be about Edward Van Halen when he said, when he made some derogatory remark, and the DJ kept going, "Listen to this, Eddie," and kept playing Led Zeppelin. So they named the bootleg after him.
Now, I've heard that they've actually found a heap more Mike the Mike tapes. I don't know if you are.
Yeah, I'm sure that they have. But you see, this is the problem with collectors, is they find these tapes, they don't want to you know, look, if you're going to do this, share it. You know, with everyone. Don't hide it. You know, it's, what's the point of having it? I've got this recording and you're not going to hear it. You know, I'm curious to see what, you know, if Led Zeppelin ever put anything else out. You know, I'm surprised they haven't put out the Albert Hall on vinyl, you know, because they have the tapes of that. And there's always the Southampton 73 warm-up show that, you know, that hasn't come out. I'd love to hear the Japan 71. They have, you know, complete from the Budokan.
There's some great copies of that online. Are there better copies of that somewhere in the band archives?
Well, Led Zeppelin have the tape. So, you know, the band have the actual master tape. So
do you ever ask Jimmy? Do you say, why don't you do this?
Yeah, but because it has to be agreed by all of them. Like Pink Floyd. You know, same as Pink Floyd, it's a band agreement, and you got certain band members that think it interferes in their solo career.
Okay. Were you surprised after 2007 that the band, after the O2 show, didn't do more shows? Or did you know it was a one-off band?
Well, I heard they were meant to do 30 shows, and I heard that they were meant to play, you know, like a week, you know, at the Forum for a few days, Madison Square Garden, Sydney, India, China, unusual places, London. And then let's just say that one band member wouldn't do those shows. That's all I'm going to say.
Right.
Flatly refused, wouldn't do them, you know, because it affected their solo career.
Yeah.
And put out their own album. That's all I want to say on it. But, you know, I do know the idea was to tour. And then, then someone wouldn't tour.
All right. But that was only revealed after the O2 show.
That was after the O2 show. So, I mean, it's sad really, because they should have toured, because they were, I mean, I thought the actual performance was great because they're all nervous, but I thought the footage is appalling. I thought it's the worst film thing I've ever seen. It
Mm.
looks like a bad, and and I thought it, and even I said to Jimmy after, I said it's weird that they left the house lights on, and it's because the idiot filming it thought he was making a TV show, so it was lit like an MTV show. The house lights were left on. They should have been off. And it took away the atmosphere. I think it was a great show. I just thought it was horribly filmed, and I think the DVD of the show is horribly edited.
With Led Zeppelin, just such an enormous legacy, and so many collectors just looking for any scrap or nugget, do you think that there's anything substantial out there in the wild still to be discovered or shared?
Oh, I think there is other stuff. I'm sure Jimmy has in his archive. And also, I respect his viewpoint is that it's like, why didn't you do that photo? Why didn't you put out all these photos like punk stuff? Because I don't want to. And it's really, if he doesn't want to, you should respect his wish. It's his music. He made the music. So Led Zeppelin with Jimmy Page's band. And if he doesn't want to release it, then you have to respect that. It's his choice. Just because, a lot of the time you hear extra tracks and they're not as good as the original. I find myself not oddly, but I enjoy more listening to the original album.
There's a reason those tracks are outtakes.
Yeah, they're out than the expanded album. Some stuff's good, but some stuff I'd rather, you listen to, I think on Led Zeppelin 2 on the box set, there's a different version of Heartbreak with a different solo, but I prefer the original. On Who's Next, there's another version of Going Mobile with a different solo, and the original's way better. And I'd rather hear the original. You listen to things. I mean, I think there is a market. How the West Was Once is good. There's a market for another Led Zeppelin album because Song Remains the Same is just, a snapshot of those nights at the Garden. It's not Led Zeppelin in there. Some of the stuff you can hear and you can tell it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's up to the artist to decide. It's their product, their music. They wrote the songs, they played the songs. I think it's people get very precious about why don't they put this out? What about us? What about you? No one's forcing you to buy it. It's like, what's it got to do with you? It's up to them. People get that, the 20 collectors who think that the band owe them something. They don't owe them anything.
Certainly from an outsider's perspective, it seems like for years after Led Zeppelin, Jimmy was pushing himself kind of away to carve out his own identity away from the band. And it's really in the last maybe 10, 20 years that he's really embraced it, then started to make those things available. Would that be an accurate?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think you come on, you look at things you did when you were young, you're like, and you come back much older and look and you think, it's not that, I like that now. And before you were always a bit, like, do I really want to look at what I did when I was 22, But you come back to it when you're older and you actually think, oh, well, that's, you start listening to it again and with a fresher ear, so to speak. Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it.
So with your record collection, it sounds quite massive. What are some of your favorite record shops in LA?
The best record shops in LA are Freak Beat, a guy called Bob who runs Freak Beat I love. Rockaway Records is fantastic. And there's SLCD online that's really good. A guy called Marco Revelo that he has. You can look at. He doesn't have a shop, but his stuff is always in pristine condition. Really good, But the main two shops that are fantastic is Freak Beat and Rockaway Records in Glendale and Sherman Oaks.
When you walk into those shops, do they save you Led Zeppelin stuff? Do they?
Yeah, they call me and ask me if I like. Bob found me in Freak Beat, and it was like $40. An immaculate copy of Physical Graffiti from South America, Venezuelan. Actually, it wasn't $40; it was way more.
Yeah.
I actually, but it was brand new, and I was like, wow, yes. And they, Mark and Wayne and Gary at Rockaway Records will call me up and say, look, do you want this? We've got this. You know, I found myself buying a signed Soundgarden album for 12-inch for $1,000 because I knew them all so well. I knew Chris Cornell. Mm-hmm. And someone said to me, are you insane? You could have got them to sign anything you wanted at the time. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't. And I wanted one thing.
Right.
You know, so I bought one thing.
What's the most you've ever spent on a record?
Wow. I went to Japan with Kiss December, not last December, the one before, just before COVID. And I spent $6,000 on 4 records. And I bought a copy of In Rock by Deep Purple, white label promo on red vinyl that I've never seen with the OB. I got Led Zeppelin 1 with the OB Immaculate, white label promo. I got Led Zeppelin 1 with the second cover on blue label promo. And for the life of me, I can't think what the other was, because those 3 maybe it was 3 records. I can't remember. They were expensive. I mean, the most I've spent probably about $2,500, you know, $2,000. You got to stop. I mean, I saw a Who single I liked for Overture from Tommy, but with the 60s cover in Utrecht, and a dealer from Belgium I know sold it to a French guy for €7,500. Mm-hmm. Grand. I was like, you got to, you know, that's what you got to like, you know.
I'm out of this game.
Yeah, you know, you got to, you know, you should, you know, like enough, you know, you got to, you know, and you start looking at, I'll tell you my biggest regret, and I wrote about it in the book. A Russian dealer there had every record. I bought a copy of Brighter Later by Nick Drake, which is normally you pay $1,000 for it, battered. It was immaculate, and I paid €500. And he had a copy of Paranoid with the Big Bear credit, which was their first management, and that was $700 or $750. I didn't buy it, but I found one in London in a market for £50, so I was very happy. But the one regret, he had a copy, and it was €850 of Led Zeppelin 2. But when you looked at the cover, it looked like someone had laid a slightly smaller cover on top, and it had faded in sunlight around the edges, right? Mm. And someone said that was how the first pressing of Led Zeppelin 2 came out, when it was withdrawn. And I thought, should I buy it? And I had a friend with me, and he went, oh, it's ridiculous. And I was thinking, I've just had enough money to buy it. And I didn't. And all the way home to London, I thought about it. And of course, he said to me, well, you'll never see one in that condition again. I wanted to kill him. Seriously, I was actually wanting to kill him. I wrote about it in the book. You know, what an idiot. And I was, that is something I really regret not buying. That was, oh, no.
I remember fondly the records I've bought. The records that I've passed up are the ones that haunt me.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can't. I mean, look, there's a guy called Cliff Yamaguchi in San Francisco, and he's a dealer, and he said to me, look, they didn't press one. It will turn up. Mm-hmm. You know, so you got to look at it in a more prosaic way. You know, more than one or two. I mean, that's a fantastic, look, I got excited when you showed me your copy of Presents, but they make more than one. It's hard to find it in the covers in good condition. You know, I like looking for all these weird, the ones they made for the US troops, all like the Thailand EPs that look really terribly, you know. Mm-hmm. The one I've got, it's in the book with Jimmy's picture for Led Zeppelin 3 on the back, on the cover, but it's for the Kinks Lola. But I still wanted it. And, you know, and on the label, which I didn't photograph, is a reverse swastika. You know, which is, you know, it's a Buddhist symbol, not a Nazi symbol. And that's on the label. And I thought, wow, how weird. Whoever thought of this, you know? Mm-hmm. So just oddities, really, you know. And the one that's the rarest thing there, and Jimmy got it, There's a Bell Records acetate for She Satisfies, Jimmy Page's first single, and they turned it down. You know, he said it was sent to them to see if they'd publish, buy it or print it, and they said no. And someone found it, Nick Anderson found it, who wrote the, again, in, you know, searching the net. It's the only one that exists.
Wow.
And Jimmy has it now. And so he should, really. And so he should have it. It's his first ever record.
Tell me about that Whole Lot of Love from Iran, that splatter version.
I don't, you know, I've got a Who's Next album. It's on the Royal label. And apparently there's only ever about, I've got a black copy of it as well, black vinyl. But the splatter one, apparently only 3 or 4 have ever shown up. Shows you how, I mean, it's amazing, really, at the time. It was during the Shah of Iran, you know? And it's hard to find. I mean, someone, funny enough, there was an Abbey Road spelt wrongly, an Iranian one, that sold for 15,000. Beatles. The Beatles to me are unfathomable. I don't even like the Beatles. You know, it's like it's weird. You know, you collect records now. You know, like no one cares about Elvis. It's all gone. You know, that whole market. People have died. It's gone. You know, and it's a weird thing on when I noticed collecting and as a photographer. It's like the whole West Coast thing. The Hendrix, Janis Joplin, the Doors occasionally. But that whole Steppenwolf, and I love Steppenwolf, that whole genre is gone. No one cares. You know, funny enough, Bob at Freakbeat, we just talked about, he told me he can't sell Jethro Tull. He said it's disappeared, the interest in them. You can still Pink Floyd all day, but you can't sell Tull. And I love, you know, Jethro Tull from sort of 75 backwards.
Yeah. Well, they printed a lot of them. And the same sort of thing. Aqualung is a $2 record, right?
Yeah,
and
it
it's
is.
a great album.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, very true.
But I think the Led Zeppelins, the Pink Floyds, the Jimi Hendrixes, those are like the blue chip of rock and roll, right? And I think those will continue to be heavy collectibles.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they, you know, you always, you know, if you can, but like the big, everyone's trying to get a perfect copy of Led Zeppelin 1 with a turquoise writing. Right, but Jimmy said he never saw one, but I was trying, but they're at every record fair, and I think, you know, we were trying to, I think they pressed 10,000. It's rubbish they pressed 100, you know, because they're at every record fair, and that was the run of records then. It was their first album, so I think they had to, and Jimmy said that once that I think they had to wait for the run to sell out or sell, to press the orange logo, you know, so it matched the back cover, you know, the orange font, sorry.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, it's meant to be like the most expensive one, but you can find them at every record fair.
Yeah.
They're normally ruined, but you find them. So I don't think it's as super rare as everyone seems to think.
Are there any extremely rare records that Jimmy has like a one-off of that would just make Led Zeppelin collectors salivate?
Well, he's at least got every acetate. So, you know, for everything that, you know, he showed me one that was a set of 7 inches, which was for Presents. I think it was Presents, or maybe it was Physical Graffiti. They'd made separate tracks. That would be worth a fortune to a collector.
Yeah. Do you think he'll ever let you in to photograph those records, his collection?
He might do it himself. He's probably done. I know him. He's done it himself. He has it all on his phone.
Oh,
like a resin check.
So rather than come out with a book, he's going to come out with an iCloud
folder
folder sharing.
Maybe I don't know with him, but you know, he has a great collection.
Oh yeah,
it's a great collection of Dylan. Here's an amazing collection of Dylan albums as well.
I've seen a picture of him in what I believe is his record collection. How big is it?
Oh, it's a big room. Yeah, that's him. That's in his house, one of his houses.
Okay.
Yeah, that is his record room. That's with his amp and everything. He's got it all alphabetically. It's funny, but the difference between him and I will put like TMOQs together. He has it by touring, by tours. You know how he's done it. It's different.
So he's got a Led Zeppelin collection that rivals yours.
Oh, easily, yeah. Half the book is his and my record collection.
Okay.
I haven't actually said, if you look at it, a lot of it belongs, some of it is his, some of it's mine. I'm not saying which.
Okay.
Some of it is some of it's me, some of it's my friend Graham, and some of the singles are Nick Anderson, but it's all off. That's the whole point of it. It's not meant to be, look what I've got and you haven't. It's meant to be, let's share this. Let's let everyone enjoy it. It's not meant to be, I've got a better record collection than you. I haven't, I know, I'm sure there's people who've got way more than me, but Jimmy Page has got a better one than all of us because trust me.
I don't doubt it one moment. All right, Ross, thank you so much for coming on the show. And again, this book is absolutely incredible. Again, I've just gone over page by page of it. I've learned so much. I've seen all sorts of really unique, incredible artwork. It's just really lifted my spirits that this book exists, and I'm able to finally see all these records I've always dreamed of having in my collection in high quality, and it's almost like I have them. It's one step away from having them in my hand. So I'd really recommend people check out this book, Led Zeppelin Vinyl by Ross Halfin, The Essential Collection on Real Art Press. It's out August 24th, I believe. You can pick up a copy at realartpress.com. You can find it at any online bookshop, and it is amazing. A must for any record collector. Led Zeppelin Vinyl, The Essential Collection. Ross, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, there we go. Mr. Ross Halfin here on the Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much, Ross, for joining us. Again, people, check out this Led Zeppelin vinyl book, realartpress.com. If you're in Australia, you can go to viciousloth.com.au. And of course, don't forget to check out zepfan.com. It's an amazing database of all sorts of Led Zeppelin collectibles, not just records, but everything else as well. And of course, check out Ross's photography work at rosshalfin.com. That's it for this week's episode of The Vinyl Guide. Please subscribe and follow The Vinyl Guide podcast. We've got literally hundreds of episodes available in our back catalog for you to check out. Conversations with music nerds and collectors from all over the music industry. And of course, share them on your social media and leave us positive reviews, people. Hop on to iTunes, leave us 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 stars, whatever you can. Say something nice, make us blush. That is always appreciated. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Cheers.
That's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Send your thoughts to Nate at thevinylguide.com or follow or tag us on Instagram at Vinyl Guide. Until next time, keep spinning.